Hey.
Now you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
That was pretty cool. I feel like I'm getting away with like stealing candy or something. It makes me so happy.
Zoom has a lot of candy.
Zoom has a lot of candy. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. So I was struck in that movie with the scene where they're both confronting these two words, be kind. You know, and I kept thinking about the tender, I knew I was going to be talking to you, and we just watched the movie on Sunday. And I was thinking about You Ruined It and how struck I am by the tenderness in it.
Oh, the movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yes.
Oh, be kind. Yes, be kind.
Yeah, but and that was so potent. You know, it wasn't like somebody, you know, everybody says be kind.
Yeah.
You know, but that was something different. You know, it was, and I feel like I feel You Ruined It is that same place.
Yeah.
You know, it's a call to something so deep. And if a teacher can find that now, with all we face ahead of us, and so many teachers leaving because they can't face it, you know, so if we're training teachers to be in those spaces, training school counselors, anybody who's going to be with children, youth workers, whatever, that I think this book gives you the opportunity to find that tenderness in yourself, to look at something as horrific as anything can be, really. I mean, you know, we see all the terror on the news that's out there. It's I mean, the ability to look away really needs to be confronted. You know,
the ability to look away needs to be confronted. Yes.
Yeah, because it is getting us into some very dangerous territory. And again, I look at if you can go into this book and find that softness about something so horrific, I think from that softness, something else will emerge that will allow you to be in the room with it, but not pretend it's not there. You know, how do you coexist with this stuff?
Right.
In these children?
Right. And how do you exist in your own body when most of us have something like this?
Exactly. So,
you know, even if you didn't get sexually abused, maybe you just got lots of whippings.
Yeah, or maybe you watched enough things happen to other people.
Yeah.
You know, when the psychology world acknowledged that when children see something happen, it's happened to them.
Yeah.
And you know, that's when the laws around child abuse changed, and that a child witnessing domestic abuse between two parents was abuse. So now you can say, if I'm in the room when it happens, it happened to me, because that's how children experience life. And so the odds of anybody not having anything like that in them are, I just don't see it as possible.
No, and it's not possible in the stories that we tell about our parents and our grandparents.
Right.
When we tell those stories to our children.
Right.
Or to any children.
Right. Right.
Their stories include a lot of abuse and rape and neglect and look, here we are. So that let's talk about that. What you know, this is, I hope this isn't too much of a tangent, but my son likes these these video essays on, and a man was doing a video essay about the moment in that movie. Oh shit, I don't even know what the movie is, but it's Leonardo DiCaprio and Jamie Foxx and Samuel L. Jackson.
Okay.
And so there's this moment where Leonardo DiCaprio's character is supposed to call them the N-word, like one of the other actors. I mean, he's in character and he's in the time, and he is an enslaver, and it's like, do your job.
Yeah.
That's right. And he's like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And the actors were patient.
Yeah.
With him for a little while, and then it was Jamie Foxx, right? Yeah, Jamie Foxx.
Yeah, it's Quentin Tarantino's movie.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
And then the story, the lore around that moment, that Samuel L. Jackson was like, do your job. This is just another Tuesday for us.
Samuel Jackson.
Do your job.
Yeah.
And so that is my impatience is I learned a lot about impatience, just so much for white people being like, I can't, it's too sad. I can't, I'm too upset. I can't breathe when I read this letter from Michael Eric Dyson, my heart's pounding. It's like, and Resma says, do your reps, because you got no muscles for this. You got none.
That's right.
And so it's from the same
yes,
place of frustration and trying so desperately to evolve and to heal by just feel your pain. Just find a way to feel your pain. Find somebody who you can feel it with, who can bear it with you. But don't cause me pain by sitting in front of me and wailing about how the fact that you can't bear your pain, like that. Yes. We're stuck. If that's where you're at.
Yes. Yes.
And for children, in terms of being in the presence of children, you cannot be accountable to children if you're unwilling to see them through trouble.
Yes.
And pain.
Yes.
And that's just the growing up. Like, grow up.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that the power of entering into a book like this, rather than thinking of it only as something you would read to children, or you and I have talked about this before, that the focus for us is, yes, of course, books. These are books we would want kids to have.
Right.
Whenever and whoever decides how that happens. But that our focus has been on, but these books are really for the child inside the teacher, these are for those children who look like grown-ups. They're still there. And to forget about them or to not acknowledge their presence is very problematic. And so I say that with great devotion and love to any teacher who would be listening to this, that, we're here to honor the fact that there's a child living inside of you who's in the room and just never got this book, never got this story, never got this opportunity. And now here's another way to embrace this particular story of what happens with this relationship, where I love you so much and you did the worst thing possible. That weird space that you may have children in your classroom who are living in that. And something I wanted to kind of move into the word resilience, because that's another term that is tossed around now quite a bit.
Right.
And especially with everything going on, that there's all these looks at resilience, and there's all kinds of conversation about how that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the ways that I see this book in particular allowing for resilience to happen is that it does bring this tenderness, but it also brings the key to unlocking resilience, what we actually understand now, thanks to those people who really know it and study it. It's not about how many bad things have happened to you that you've moved past and been able to construct a life for yourself afterwards.
Right.
Because you first have to break down what is the life that's been constructed, grounded in. And most of the time, the answer to that is the answer that capitalism provides. So that what you look like when you're successful and you've overcome these terrible things in your past equals this. There's an outcome that is specific, and it has certain qualities associated with it. So what if we pulled all the way back from that and said, well, the outcome of resilience, what you would look like if you were resilient, would mean that that was self-determined. That was propelled from within you, but you can't get to you until you actually are honest about you. That you actually can say, this is what happened for me. And that what you did so artfully and perfectly was demonstrate that the next thing that needs to happen for you to be self-determining is to be surrounded by people who can hold you through it and allow you to move through it the way you need to move through it and be there.
Yeah.
And that ingredient turns out to be the ingredient in the recipe that actually is the determining factor. It's not the event itself, or events, plural.
It's not preventing them. It's not making sure nothing happened to your kid.
Nothing.
We all learned that with Finding Nemo.
Yeah. So thank you. So it's not that, right? It's not the ordinary terrible thing. It's when what's left out of the recipe is the brother, the mother, Angelishka, all the things that needed to, all those.
Yeah, the practices
all of it. That's actually what we now know, that I hope every teacher or person who's listening to this at some point will hear. That's actually how resilience happens. It turns out we're supposed to take care of each other. Who knew?
Rogers. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. It turns out we're supposed to look out.
We're supposed to take care of each other.
Yeah. So that as someone who is in the orbit of a child's world, you have the option of being that ingredient. And you hear people talk about this all the time. They talk about this, if it hadn't been for this person, if it hadn't been for this person. Right, exactly.
And it usually doesn't take much.
No.
It's got to be the one thing and not the other thing. But
right.
The father in Death is Stupid comes up the stairs and sits on the bed.
Yes.
Steadies himself, steadies the child.
Yes.
Looks out the window. They see the garden, wants attention.
Right.
Let's get you dressed.
Yes.
Care, just care.
There you go. Yes.
Care and presence, and everybody's saying it. It's not Everybody, I hear it. It's what the collective wants, because you hear it everywhere you go and read it in everything you read, and I hear it in everything. And it's not just now, like we just invented it. We're hearing it. The person who said it 50 years ago, 150 years ago, but that is the message that's like, wah, wah, wah at us.
Yes.
And so.
Yeah, so if that's the
What
case,
a relief that it's so simple.
what a relief. Yeah, what a relief.
Considering how much trouble we're in.
Yes.
What a relief that is.
It's that simple.
That is where we're at. This is what's needed.
Yeah.
All right. Attention, care.
Yep. Just be kind.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. And one of my former middle school students, who's now actually an author herself, she's got 3 children, and oh my gosh, what these young, I love watching what they do. And she wrote to me about the movie, and she said, oh yeah, I remember, in middle school, I remember this.
What does she remember?
She remembers, why are you here? To be kind. Why are you here?
You would ask the children.
Yeah, we would talk about, it turns out we're supposed to take care of each other. Yeah. Because when they were in middle school, was the year George Bush was elected and Al Gore lost. And of course they were devastated. And then so many years later, they all came to my house and watched Barack Obama inaugurate, and we had donuts, and it's, so I've had this journey with them around presidencies. But they, she has written a whole book about, turns out we're supposed to take care of each other. It's all kinds of meditations, and she is something of a sorceress herself. And her sister has a business called the Bluegrass Witch. So
cool name.
she does spells and crystals and all kinds of things. And I think that leads me to this other ingredient that I wanted to ask you to say something about, and that is that you clearly, intentionally put this character in who represents something that's not necessarily, it doesn't fall under the category of, most people wouldn't put witch, but this spiritual reckoning, this place for that interaction.
Yeah.
And, I know in public schools, I have stood in front of children who are, ready to be put into a detention room, because they're right. But if you can summon this energy, that kind of energy into the room and yourself in that moment, you can experience a kindness toward a human being that is not possible otherwise. It's some kind of place. And I'm wondering if you could just talk about that and how you put it in the book and where you see it fitting in, because I know for me, all I have to do then, once I can get that summoning to happen, I can hold out my hand and say, how can I help? And almost, it's not really me saying it.
No, and Angeliska is ancient.
Yes.
It's another grandmother in a different form in terms of the series and the grandmothers. Although, we have a grandmother here who's upholding patriarchy.
Right.
And internalized misogyny. But the patriarchy is bad for children. And I wanted a witch who is tuned into something more earth, outer space, her air, and who like embodies a kind of like, earth has seen all of this before.
Okay.
This is not shocking. Angeliska doesn't come into the room and go and feel sorry for Dawn.
Right.
She just says, what you're doing here with these spirographs, Keep doing that.
Got it.
This story that you're telling yourself,
Mm-hmm.
keep it coming, keep it coming. And so, you know, she represents this like unafraid of the danger
Mm-hmm.
that Dawn has faced, and trusting the healing that is to come.
Okay.
Trusting that will be, that Dawn will source that for herself, that she will
Mm-hmm.
gather up what she needs. And, you know, Angeliska's just creating more incentive for that, and trusting this little spirit to find their way. And you know, I mean, witches, what did patriarchy do? Look what they did to the priestesses, and look what they missed. And we're all still feeling it. We're all still feeling the tremors of that, but it's so emergent, it's so resurgent.
Yes.
And it never went away.
No.
But now, you know, little goth girls, little queer goth girls with rainbow hair that they artfully dyed to be the whole thing and frame their beautiful faces. They're coming up into a time of like, your capitalist, white supremacist, patriarchal structures are garbage. We have everything we need. I'm learning about herbs. I'm learning about different kinds of intelligence. I'm learning about stuff that I'm learning about my own intuition and how it leads me to my teachers and to my healers, and I'm sharing information, and I'm gobbling up information, and I'm tethered to this beautiful, dying, evolving world. And I can't think of anything more important to children or to any of us who right now, that kind of energy.
I listened to something recently that I was unaware of, and that is apparently there's a surge of individuals seeking help of what have been traditionally called psychics, right? And that there's a turning away from churches, and that those things, whether they're cause and effect or corollary, there's some relationship to the decrease in one space and the increase in going to the other space. And the conversation was about just what you said, that there's a turning toward that, and the fact that this being is in that story is I think it's so important that each of us that are, you know, in a life of someone who's young, a child, that we recognize that being an ingredient that needs to be there. Somehow it needs to be there. So you have this very strange kind of thing where in a public school, you know, you have a lot of secret Bible meetings going on. And, you know, I know about those kinds of things that go on in some of the public schools in Kentucky that are, you know, happening. They're not supposed to be happening, so to speak, but they are. And I think to myself, you know, that's not what I'm talking about. Right? I'm not. So if someone were to hear me say this or hear you say this, it seems important to clarify that we're not talking about religion.
No.
That because there is a lot of conversation about how that should be in schools, and then, you know, no, I don't want religion in schools. I want the elemental beings in schools. You know, I want the earth and the wind and the fire and the air and all of it. I want all of that at school. I want children to have access to that. So how do I bring that? Well, I bring it. That's how I bring it. You know, so I point out this place and individual in the book because it's so unusual for us to grapple with. How could we be that for a child? You know, how could we be that for a child?
And if you're a teacher and you have the classroom where there are just a few plants, just, you know, just lined up on the windowsill, the bean sprouts and the martins. If you are kind to the plants,
yes,
that doesn't mean you have to name them and talk to them, you know, just kind to them. Just notice, oh, you need some water. They need some water. Let's give them some care and attention. I mean, just that, and attention to space, and you need a little bit more space. Oh, that chair's wobbly. Let's get you, like there's a, you know, what I want there to be in the classroom, in our lives and in our bodies is craft. Doesn't have to be witchcraft, but craft and intuition, respect for what we already know. We forgot that we knew it.
Yes.
But respect for and curiosity about that. Together we could like go mining.
Yes.
Or what do we already know that we don't know that we know?
Yeah.
And where, you know, and in doing so, of course, you find places of violence severing from those ways and those practices. But you know, and that said, I don't want to glorify it too much because I had an experience in my 20s where I was I've always been kind of a mark, is that the word? Where I'm like a good one for trying to get something over on.
Oh, me too. People play jokes on me and yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Okay. And also just like for a con and for I get robbed.
Yes, I get that
robbed in a way where I'm actually handing over my wallet. Like,
yes,
is my idea for you to have this, you know, like, so, and I connect it to my, you know, the harm, the harm of within my trusted circle, what occurred, and my sense of what's dangerous and what's safe is all skewed and screwy and warped. And so I had an experience where I went to a psychic because I was so desperate to know something about this in my life, you know. Like I don't there's stuff I can't get to. And so I wanted to go to a psychic and I still, you know, I eventually just had to give up. There's stuff I just don't know. And I feel like my body knows, but I don't have any. But so I go to this psychic and she just tricked me out of a lot of money. She did a trick, you know, she did an actual trick and showed me the bad energy and said a few things that whatever she does, that's just like, just right to get somebody on the hook. So they pay a lot of money. And it was really damaging.
I'm so sorry.
You know, it's that kind of thing where like your spiritual leader, you know, rapes you or whatever, takes all your money. It was like that, but it got me in, you know, into a kind of it was so upsetting that I was like, I need to get a therapist, you know, and this was my mid-20s. And but I had been in therapy already in high school and in college, but it was like, this keeps happening. And so I don't want to glorify it too much. There are the people out there who, you know, but it's not particular to these arts.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what I want teachers to, we've got about 10 minutes left, so I'm gonna,
Okay, good.
I think that's why I kind of want to see, how can a teacher summon that energy themselves versus seeing that as something outside themselves, something that a healer would have, or a psychic would have, or a spiritual guide would have, or a guru would have, you know,
Right.
and that they not get too bogged down in it being something they don't seem to have. But,
Oh,
you know, to go on a journey of where is it in me, you know, and, you know, I love what you said. I think that example of taking care of plants,
mhm.
you know, these simple caring acts, I believe, are what we're talking about. You know, I don't think of it as some fantastical energy that comes in and just saves the day,
Right.
because that's not what happens
No, and it's
at
not just
all.
co-opting indigenous ceremonies or
No,
something. Saying
right.
like, oh, we can do
Yeah.
that too. We'll just
Yes.
do what they do, but we'll do
Yeah.
it here.
Right.
It's not that
No.
either.
No, it's not that. It's, and you know, that's part of whiteness is, you know, that what is it for us?
Right.
You know, if it can't, you can't co-opt. That's what I meant when I said that about shamans earlier.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
that you can't, I can't be a shaman. You know, I don't, but I can be a healer.
You can. And your classroom, whoever's classroom can, I mean, what if I did not have this in school, but it would have made a lot of, I can imagine it. A teacher who would say, let's look at the sky for a while.
Yes.
Wow, the light is really wild right now. It's like, it's not quite cloudy, but it's not quite sunny, and something silver is happening. Let's just take this next 20 minutes and just look at the sky and talk about what's happening in the
Yeah.
sky. Like that would be immediately,
Yes.
that's kind of witchy.
Yes. Yeah,
No,
that's that. Yes. Yes.
posting is kind of witchy. And
Yes.
and that's, you know, it's where we're at too. It's like, let's pay attention, be kind,
Right.
and give care to the, and the you know, these words on my arms, these trust in the goodness of the earth and know that you are the earth,
Yes.
that just keep reinforcing that.
Mhm.
And then those false structures don't have as much of a hold on us,
Right.
and the kids
So,
will do that.
you know what's coming to me really clearly
What?
as I'm listening to you this whole time, I'm thinking, oh, so everybody can listen to this and use You Ruined It and What You Don't Know. Well, all your books, but if we just focus a little bit on You Ruined It and the introduction of this idea that you can be a healer, you can create healing spaces, your classroom, your office, whatever, where children visit you and look to you, you know,
Yeah.
maybe that's the workshop.
Mm.
How do I make a healing space out of my classroom? You
Oh
know,
my gosh, that would be wonderful.
well, and your, you know, the work with collage and paper dolls and the art that you've made in this book, and all of that can be brought into teachers' lives so that they can figure that out. Could I have a plant? You know,
Yeah.
and could I have a little fountain with water in it, with
Right.
rock?
A little,
You know,
like a small rug and a rocking chair on it. And
Yes.
the kids can say, I need to sit in that rocking chair for
Yes.
a few minutes.
Right.
And when somebody's in the rocking chair, you're not allowed to talk to them.
Right. Exactly.
But just leave them be. And they're just looking at the sky, rocking in a rocking chair. I mean, that would be so old fashioned.
Yeah. And exactly. And you know, I long for, you know, I long for all the everyday practices that go on in Waldorf schools every day, all day, for so many years now, knitting and art and singing, and everybody plays an instrument, everybody has that healing happen. So as an educator, I've taught in both school systems. I've taught in the public school system, I've taught in this Waldorf school world, and then I've founded and created my own schools where I took the ideas that I liked from different spaces.
Yeah.
And I've really seen you can make a classroom a place of healing and still do your job. Kids can still learn to read and do in fact, you can't stop it from happening because everything's in place. And it kind of brings us back to this idea of what needs to be in place, including
what about when your teachers are so wrecked?
Yes.
By how badly they're treated.
Right.
And just the fact that I can't have a rocking chair in my classroom.
Right.
Nobody can handle it. They're in 7th grade. They're exhausted.
Mm-hmm.
They're stressed out. They're stressing me out. I don't know how to even manage this size of class. I'm always in trouble because I go too slow.
Right.
All those teachers, like, how do we care for them? Not so that they can care for the kids, but just to care for them. Just like, just you, for the sake of you, teacher. I hear from my sisters how it just sounds impossible.
And I can't have I'll close with this, because I would love, if you're up for it, for us to, next time we talk, really dive into more from what you don't know, and this book about teachers and the safe spaces. And I think I will call it, I can't have a rocking chair, but I can have a gun. I mean, this is what's alive and well for teachers right now.
Yeah.
So would you want to do that?
I'm game, sure.
All right.
Let's talk about guns. We need to talk about guns. If we're in schools, we got to talk about guns.
Yes. And I think that, anyway. Yeah. I'll be here for 3 more hours. Okay.
You wanted to talk about self-defense. We can go.
Let's
that context.
Let's get involved in that conversation next time.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Bye.
I'm so glad I saw you.
Yes, me too. Oh, bye-bye.
I hope you can stay cool, get some coolness and shade.
Yes, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.